Welcome, Harvey. So you've been a photographer, self-taught for over 40 years.
Yes.
How
Yes.
did you end up uh, taking up photography, and why jazz and other music events?
Well, I always wanted to be a photographer. It's just that I didn't realize I wanted to be a photographer till I was in my 30s. Um, I was influenced really by Life magazine, the original
Mhm.
black and white Life magazine, and the pictures just were fascinating. They um, showed me a whole. They like spoke. The thing is, one photographer really stood out to me. I didn't realize it. A guy named Alfred Eisenstadt, one of the original guys. And
Mhm.
there'd be different essays from week to week. It came out weekly back then. And he did a series of orchestra conductors, famous conductors around the world, which is really the US and Europe was around the world back then. And they were conducting their
Mhm.
orchestras, sometimes in rehearsal, sometimes in performance. The thing that got me and gets me to this day is I looked at the pictures. It was as if I could hear the music.
Mhm.
That's pretty cool. I think I like. So then I went off and studied business and got into business and had a whole career for 15 years and another scene actually in the commodity futures industry. Just stumbled into that and grew in that. And one day it was like, hey, that's enough. So I always wanted to be a photographer. I wanted to do photography, even though I had not done a lot of photography. And even though I did not know a photographer, I said, okay, now I'm a photographer. Didn't know a thing. And thinking back about it, it's like I went from being a director of research and a regional manager with two assistants to being a photographer's assistant, sweeping the floor and going out for beer and rolling papers. And I learned everything the hard way.
Mhm.
I met photographers. I learned that I didn't want to be a studio photographer. Um, I wanted to be a photo illustrator, like Reed Miles out of California, that did these enormous sets of scenes that were
Mhm.
actually put together. I think one of the first jobs I ever got was from my little sister, who was an administrator for a trade association. She said, we need a picture for the cover of our monthly magazine. And it's a dental hygienist in a classroom with some kids, and she's explaining how to brush teeth. Can you do that? I said, sure. I was somebody's assistant. I was a really nice guy, Tony Gabe. Uh, and he just laid back and watched as I accepted the job. He suggested, maybe you should call some modeling agencies and get some kids modeling. Oh, yeah, that's
Mhm.
good. Maybe you should hire someone to play the part of a dental hygienist. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea too. Maybe you should construct something in the studio here that looks like a classroom. Maybe we could get oh, yeah, that's a good idea. It turned out that even though I was his assistant, he turned into my assistant and just showed me how to light it, how to hire people, how to shoot it. I still have the cover. I'm really proud of the cover. And he's the guy that should get the credit for it. But uh, he was really wonderful. So that's how I got into it. I stayed with him. I stayed with a bunch of different photographers as their assistants. But um, I finally went off on my own in the early 80s and started to build my own business, which was more of a corporate business, events. I worked with PR firms, working for corporations, try to get some jobs with some state agencies, whoever they may be, whatever they might want, still learning along the way.
Mhm.
And around 1990, when I finally had a slow but steady flow of business coming in, something new called computers came along. The girl in the office could take a picture. So they didn't need me anymore. And I was talking with a friend, a guy named Jan Hughes, a video director and producer, a talented man. And I said, what am I going to do? My business is gone. He says, well, some of these companies are getting into interactive multimedia. What's that? He says, I don't know. So I started to look around again. I didn't have a computer. People generally didn't have computers. And I somehow found that there was a group that was getting together in California, in San Francisco, that were going to discuss some state-of-the-art, best-in-class interactive software where you could actually create a button on your screen and then push the button and it would go to another screen. And it was like brain surgery. Okay, so I flew out there. I'm the oldest guy in the in the lobby to get in. I was in my, I think, early, maybe mid 30s, and everyone's talking about technology. I'm trying to figure out the difference between RAM and a hard drive. They started talking, and I didn't understand what they said, but I knew that's where I had to be, especially since my photography business was disappearing. So I came back to Chicago, around, found a group that was forming as a multimedia. And I said, I want to be with you guys. I don't know who you are. I don't understand what you're saying. I don't have a computer. This is where I should be. So the head of the group at the time said, okay, well, that sounds good. You'll be the program chairman. You'll meet everybody and learn everything. So from that, I became the president and ran the place for 12 years. And we used to have 3 meetings a month on different topics that are related to interactive multimedia and a brand new thing called the internet, which I swore I'd never get.
Yeah.
So all this time I'm out of photography. But in 2004, the guy that turned me on to this, Jan, back in 1990, starts calling me. He says, I need some still photography for government agency, press conferences. So I started to get back into photography. And when I did, it turns out that all the technology had changed. It was all digital then. Everything had changed. I had to learn everything again. The only thing that had not changed was the fees I could charge for anything I was going to be hired to do. So I'm learning on somebody else's dime and pretending like I know what I'm talking about. This is a long story, but it's got a point to it. Yeah. So one of the first jobs I had was photographing then Governor Rod Blagojevich.
Do you happen to have some of those early photographs you talked about, like the dental hygienist and?
Oh, I don't have
the
those.
ones.
I've got the thing, but I don't have that. So, but here's the thing. I'm standing in a room that's the press room, and there's the governor's there with a handful of people behind. And I find I see all the other still photographers line up, and they say, and I look over on one side, and there's a guy from the New York Times. I look on the other side, and there's a guy from AP, and next to him, some guy from Getty, and me. So I think, well, I'm pretty cool. I'm going to sit there, and he's going to talk at the podium, and I'm going to shoot. So he talks, and then they're going to change speakers to a different person who is affected by whatever act is being signed. And all the photographers start to look at what they've shot on their screen. And I look at mine, and I can't help but look and see what New York Times is doing and what AP is doing. And I'm stunned that, like, I didn't see that. I don't know what, I mean, we're looking at the same thing. They have totally different pictures of what we're all looking at. Like, I got a lot to learn, not only of the technology, but what goes into a picture. So that's the background of all the realizations I've gone through and that I'm still going through about what goes into a picture, what goes into a frame.
Yeah.
Let me
Do
stop
you
there.
have some of those pictures?
No, I can't show you state pictures.
Okay.
No, it was a really interesting thing. Then I'm still approved. That's the word, approved as a vendor to the. I filled out the 19-page RFP that not only explains who I am, what I do, that I'm not a felon, that I don't owe back taxes, that any subcontractor is in the same boat that I am, but also I testified that I don't do business with the country of Iran, all that stuff. So all that leads me to tell you that everything I shoot for the state belongs to the state. Everything I shoot for
I see. I
a
understand.
fundraiser, a political fundraiser, it belongs to whatever the party.
We want to get some sense, Harvey, of your early shooting. So show us some images. Let's see from where you started and where you got to.
Oh, you actually want to see some pictures?
Yes, yes, yes.
I'll show you some pictures, some early pictures that I did for space, because space in 2008, when my business again was going down the drain, I had lunch with Dave Spector, a wonderful guy, a friend, and a great blues guitarist. He said, we're opening a new club in Evanston called Space. It's a new club. We need some PR pictures. Do you think you might want to do some PR pictures? So what I did was, I'm going to click over to share my screen now. Is that okay?
Sure.
What I did was,
go ahead.
let's see, share screen. This goes like this. This goes like this. This goes like this. Am I there? Can you see?
You are there.
Yeah.
Yes.
So so I said, sure, I'll go in there. Whatever that means, I'll go in and I'll shoot some pictures. And I went into space in 2008. And the first guy I find myself in front of is Alan Toussaint. Like, I think I know who that guy is. I shot in space for 10 years. They had all kinds of people there. They had Willie Big Eyes Smith, and they had Red Meldau, Gary Koch Jr., John Winter. This is from Lady Smith Black Baza, Stanley Clark, John Schofield, Joe Lovano, Gary Burton, Makoto Ozone. Forgot who. Mr. Frizzell, Mr. Blade.
Oh, this is a really nice one.
Yeah, beautiful. Oh, the other ones weren't nice. I'll remember that. Okay. Leon Russell. Here's a real interesting, like, the guy is really big. The place is jam-packed. There's nowhere for me to move. He's wearing dark sunglasses and a hat, so you can't see his face. And I still need the picture. So I walked around behind him, and I got that. You know, Jimmy Vaughn, Magic Slim. So those are some of the early pictures that I shot at space.
And these were digital already or film?
Everything had to be digital. So I'm learning as I'm going. And over the 10 years, it was interesting because I put a book together. I have my book here, 10 Years in Space. After 10 years, I put a book together. I said, I'm going to put a book together. What does that mean? Like, that sounds great. Then you got to put a book together. So I had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pictures, thousands of pictures. I had to edit them down. And as I did that, I could see in that 10-year period how my shooting had changed, how the technology had changed, how my skills at processing had changed. It came down to about 70 pictures. I don't know if I answered your question. I forgot what the question was, what the question was, but it was interesting to see.
Are you a distance from them and shooting with a tele lens, or are you this close? Do you have the privilege of being this close to the stage? I've never been to the space, so I don't know what the setup is.
Space, as well as whatever club I'm in, I try to get as close to the stage as possible. I don't depend on telephoto lenses. Well, don't tell anybody, but to be honest with you, I use one lens. That's it. That's between you and me. I use a 24 to 120. I'm on a Nikon camera.
Yeah, okay.
It's an f4. And I standardized on that for music photography as well as for just about all of the commercial work that I do, because it covers everything I do. I have other lenses, but I don't need them. I don't use them. This is the one I use. So on these kinds of, all the pictures that I showed you, I was basically using that similar lens, better cameras over time, but I still use that to this day, and I get as close as I can. When Space had a show where they took the tables and chairs out and it was all standing room only, I would get there an hour and a half so I could stand right up against the stage, because if there was one layer of people in front of me, I was too far back. I couldn't navigate around because I was surrounded by people. I don't want to be surrounded by, I want everyone behind me. I don't want to, I'm not Mr. Important. I don't look at it that way. It's just that I always move around. I'm always moving. I'm always looking for a shot, a better angle. The way when you're playing pool, you walk around the table, around another way. You're looking for the right angle, and you're threading between all the mic stands and the music stands and the cables and the water bottles that are all over the stage to try to get some halfway decent kind of picture.
Can you go back and let's see those a little bit more slowly. You went through the first batch pretty quick.
There's that guy. There's these guys. Actually, they were kind of far away. I put Frizzell closer to Brian Blade than, and I forgot this man's name. He was the nicest man.
Ron
Miles.
Yes. Yeah. Couldn't be a nicer.
Yeah, he passed away recently.
Oh, really? Couldn't be a nicer man. And really talented. And they just blew up a storm. But they were separate on the stage, so I moved them together. It's like that's when it's time for me to do a documentary job. It's documentary. You got to say what you got to show what's there. When I'm shooting music, I make it look the way I think it should look. And if that means putting something in or taking something out or moving somebody around, that's what I do.
So you move them in post-production in the digital file? Yeah.
And at first, I mean, when I first started to realize that's what I had to do, it's like, oh my God, this is brain surgery. I don't know if I can do this. But in reality, once you do it, it's like, hey, that's the next thing to do. So there's that.
Kermit Ruffins.
Kermit Ruffins. This one, as well as there's another one. Let me find that one. Let's see. This one, Brad Mehldau. So I'm told Brad Meldau's coming in. He's going to do a solo show. Well, I know that a club that only holds 250 people and they're all sitting down, I can't be walking around thinking, snapping away. And at the same time, they'd like pictures at the club, and I like pictures. So I got there for the sound check at 5 o'clock, 3 hours before the show. And they had told me this guy is in his own world, and leave him alone and don't bother him. And if we miss him, then we miss him. Well, I didn't feel like missing him, so I went there at 5 o'clock, and I'm able to get in easily enough. And when I approach him or anybody, I'll put a camera around my neck. I won't surprise them out of the blue. Excuse me, my name's Harvey. You don't know me. There's no reason for you to know me. Here's what I do. Here's what I'd like to do. He was just playing chords. He was off in another world, looks up, gives me a smile, says, yeah, no problem. Goes right back into his other world. Didn't pay any attention to me. I walked around him for about 3, 4, 5 minutes. the manager of the club came out. His manager came out. They were furious with me. Don't be bothering him. I said, hey, it's okay with him. I said, it is? Yeah, it was. So we had a nice experience. That was before the gig. That's how I got that picture.
So you're very attentive to the light on their faces, it looks like. You're getting these high cheekbones and angles. This one too. I mean,
processing. That's all my processing. That's how I interpret all these things. This is the same thing. There's no one in the club. I can't get this close if he's performing with a bunch of people. So I got this close when no one was there.
Harvey, is the intensity just as great during the warm up as it is during the actual performance?
No, it's really not. Although sometimes it really is remarkable. I walked in, Makoto Ozone is testing out this grand piano, and he's got he's playing. I say, who is that? Oh, it's Brahms. I like Brahms. He's playing Brahms on the piano, and she's really getting into it, and it's fantastic. Would I know that it's not as good as if he was in concert? No, it sounded pretty good to me. So there's that kind of thing. These guys weren't performing. I move around all the time, and in a darkened club like this, I still try to move around. I try not to be a jerk. I try not to stand in front of anyone or in front of anyone for any length of time. I never use flash. So anything you see here, all the processing.
Naturally.
Slowed, since he plays that way, I slowed the shutter down so I could get this kind of movement. This guy I forgot his name. He died recently. He's the one that formed Lady Smith Black Plaza. I'll tell you in a second. He's right in front of me here. He's Joseph Shabalala. Wonderful people. Gary Clark Jr. There's a new guy in town. He's called Gary Clark Jr. Never heard of him. That was years ago. 2011. That's the first time he came through that I knew of. And he played at Space, so I got him. And it's interesting, I photographed these guys. I could see from 2008 to 18, I had to deal with issues of noise. When we were using film, it was graininess. How grainy are your pictures, and how grainy can you stand them to be? Well, I grew up on the Original Life magazine, where the film, the speed of the film was what, 6? I was shooting 2 days ago. I had my ISO. So when you're shooting this kind of stuff, there's a lot of pixelation. And I've learned in processing how to control it. Sometimes I want very, very little, which if you have too little, it starts to look like a painting, which is bad unless it's good. And other times I want as much as I can get, make it look like an etching. So there's that kind of stuff. This guy just leaned right into my lens. Willie Big Eyes Smith. Why do they call him Big Eyes? Oh, that's why. And then in processing, I brought out his eyes. Simon Phillips. And he was with, who was he with? Well, I'll come back to this one, but he was with her, Hiromi.
Yeah.
So again, I had some wonderful opportunities for 10 years at Space. They'd say, Hiromi's coming. You got to see Hiromi. Like, okay, whatever that is, I'll come. She looks like she's like 14. Super modern dress, Japanese. And she's got a 9-foot Yamaha that is in her contract. Wherever she plays, she gets a 9-foot Yamaha. So they had to come in and take the Steinway apart, move it out, bring this Yamaha in, tune it, then tune it before she played, then take that apart, move it out. But here's a 9-foot piano. So what am I going to do with this? And she's moving all the time. So I just took advantage of, I played off the length of the piano and her movement to create that.
And did you take more than one shot and join them together, or how did you get the
No.
panorama effect?
That's one image that I
Mhm.
stretched out that way because after a while of processing it and suffering through how am I going to do this, I just said, oh yeah, well then take this, and I just
I
and
see. Okay.
there it was. There it was. So she had a guy with her that was playing the drums, and that was where are you?
Simon Phillips, right?
Phillips. And he had 1 billion drums.
Mm-hmm. And I forget what their bassist's name is.
Oh, I think he was from New York, and I swear he was an Indian from this distraction.
Oh, really?
Yeah. At the time, he was a large man, brilliant guy, didn't move very much, sitting down. And he did that. And here's Simon Phillips surrounded by nines, air drums. I don't know. And again, I'm in a club. And assuming that it's not a solo where you got to be a jerk to be moving around. I move around everywhere, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm as considerate as I can be, and I'm invisible. I just go where I'm going to go where I feel I should go, get the shot, and get out of it. So I went right up to him and did that. These guys, I was mentioning to Howard yesterday when we checked our Zoom. These guys, this is Dave Rempis, Josh Abrams, and Dana Hall. So these guys are best in class. Okay, tenor sax, it's a great reed man, and fabulous bass, and, drums and cymbals here. Brilliant guy, this guy. So they're going to play Unity by Albert Eiler.
Mm-hmm.
Spiritual Unity.
Oh, Virtual Unity. Okay, so I'm not familiar with the composer. I'm not familiar with the music. I know Dana fairly well. I know Dave Rempis to say hi. Nice to see you again. Josh, I barely know. So they come together and they're going to play this. And I react to the music. I feed off the music when I try to figure out what I'm going to shoot. They started playing. I don't know what the hell they were playing. I've never heard anything like it before. I didn't know how they knew how to start. I couldn't imagine them knowing when to stop. I didn't know what and they're all moving.
Mm-hmm.
And still I need a picture. So what I did is here's 3 separate pictures. And I processed each one and I resized each one and I fitted them together as if they were next to each other playing. So if this works at all, I'm not telling you that it works, but if it works at all, it's like I did it out of self-defense. Hello. I let somebody in, and as a result, we lost everybody. Oh, there it is, right there. So that's where I was with that.
Mm-hmm.
What
Harvey,
Will you talk a little bit about the etchings that you said had inspired you?
Yeah, recently, I forgot how this happened, but recently, which is in the last few months, I came across a printmaker who was very big, successful in the like maybe 1915 to 1950 or something like that. I think he died in the early 60s. A guy named Martin Lewis, whose name I easily remember because I remember the singer and comedian who were a team back in the day, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
So, Martin Lewis. And he was an etcher and a printmaker, fantastic etchings. And what he did was, he was in New York, and he made etchings of just everyday scenes or every night scene. There were night scenes, and there were common scenes around the city. And it just struck me. My God, look at the light on that. Look at the scene of that. And I love this kind of thing. I've always been inspired. I think some of the first pictures I ever took when I got my first camera, I got on the bus at night, went downtown, and was shooting at night. Like, what's that? That's what motivated. So here's these etchings by Martin Lewis. Maybe I got two options. I can learn how to make etchings, which I'm absolutely, you can go to the bank. I'm not learning how to make etchings. Or I can see if I can simulate something that kind of sort of looks like an etching using Lightroom and Photoshop and maybe whatever else I can come across. So earlier this week, I went to the Logan Cafe at the Reva and David Logan
Yeah.
at the University of Chicago. They have an event every month, like the third Tuesday of the month, and I knew that Ryan Cohen and John Mordechowski were going to be there, and they always have a big crowd. It's always sitting down. It's a little uncomfortable for me to try to move around and capture the musicians who are playing, although I have done that successfully and it's turned out well. But my venture here earlier this week was just to find an angle that I could use as a basis for making it into my attempt at making something look like an etching. So this is where I started, and this is where I finished. So what I did is I straightened it out a little bit. I had to take this microphone out. I had to crop it, and then I had to do whatever I'm going to do. I liked these lights. I liked seeing some of these details. I was fascinated. I wanted this for sure because of this kind of thing, you know, this kind of thing, that kind of thing, you know. So I like that a lot. So there, I went to that. From here to here. When I noticed that I couldn't see his hand, I knew right away, well, one of the things I have to do is get rid of this. So I got rid of that. We got real close. Well,
How did you get his hand in?
his hand was there. His
Cloned.
really long. If you're going to be super critical, you could see, well, maybe that's not as smooth as it should be. But
So you cloned it.
yeah.
No, I thought the mic covered it. The mic stand covered it before on the.
It did.
No.
It did. It was there. I mean, I've got a little bit of.
Oh, I see.
So you
I
got
see.
a little bit here. I got a little bit here. If I take this out,
Join it. Yeah.
I see.
create what it looks like is there, then it's there.
That's amazing. It's like the Blade Runner effect, right? And I like that you've got this photographer. You really brought him out in the final version also, so he's kind of a stand-in for you because you know you're right there. And
Yeah, it's amazing. Here's another photographer over here, Spencer, and I know that Lauren has shot there, as loads of people have shot there. And the trick is, as in any place, how do you get something that's worth looking at that you weren't a jerk to stand in front of a bunch of people to get, you know? Back and forth, back and forth. I went on another thing. This was a few weeks ago. Louis Achenbach, a wonderful artist, put together a what he calls an art occurrence. It was a bunch of artists scattered all around a room here, and they were all responding to this guy playing for an hour, just playing for an hour. He sat down and improvised for an hour, and so I moved up to him and saw him. This I could fix this as a regular photo, and it would certainly be nice. I always loved this kind of thing, but instead I did on an iPad. I did this, so I made it kind of into a sepia tone. I cropped it a lot. I straightened it out. I brought out, come on, sorry, if you touch this the wrong way, like so many things, you touch them the wrong way, something bad happens. I love these kinds of details. And then I can play how much or little I want to include here or back here. Bring these out, bring this, how much reflection I want. I could get rid of these scratches if I want to. I didn't want to do that. There was some gunk up here that I did get rid of. So that's the kind of thing that I'm doing.
Harvey, do you have to think about publishing these? Like the you're doing these as fine art prints and thinking about selling them that way as opposed to thinking about trying to get them published in magazines or newspapers, right?
Correct. When
you have an online gallery, right, where these are available for purchase.
I have a variety of images that I put in my gallery online on my site that are available.
Harvey, my son teaches photography in high school, and he uses your book as one of the source materials for the kids to look at. And they absolutely get what you said earlier. The music is talking to them through those photos. What kind of advice would you give for someone who is teaching young photographers on how to get them involved with doing the stuff you do? I've got Hooper, who's one of my favorite painters. I've got him in my kitchen, and I've got a picture that you had given me of an Italian ice place with the same colors right next to it, and the use of those the shadows were just fantastic in both of them.
Well, number one, shoot a lot and show the best. Secondly, as you shoot, not only are you going to, you have to critically look at what you're producing. Everyone likes to push a button and look at these pictures. They're their pictures, but you've got to be critical about it. Just as a writer can write 500 words and then you go like, what did I say? Well, 100 of them shouldn't be there, and 50 of them should be different. You know. Well, the same thing is true with pictures. You got to do that. Try to encourage them to go down whatever lane they're in, and encourage them to realize as best they can at their age that it's not the only lane that they're ever going to be in. They should be open to change. There's new technology coming along all the time. Don't fear it. Be open, and as your ideas change and grow, hopefully you'll be able to start to employ some of these new tools that are available to you. That's all I've ever done. Gee, I have a problem here. You know, like somebody's eyes are closed. Well, how do you open the eyes? And this is a job. You got to have somebody with their eyes open. Well, I'll take somebody else's eyes and put them on this guy. I mean, again, between you and me, there's a couple that I photographed years ago, and then the man died. And it's the best picture of the couple, but the woman has her eyes closed and she wants the picture. I had to find somebody with the same color eyes that she did. Her eyes. and put them on her eyelids. She loves the picture. Don't tell her.
You just told her.
No.
You seem
Well,
to
it's
have a
good
lot of
to
different-
hear you say these things because we've all done those stuff and not told anyone, but it's good to know that other people do it too.
Yeah, really. I mean, especially with the pictures that I shoot these days. I love shooting at the Green Mill. I love shooting at Jazz Showcase. I mean, these places are. It was a while to get in. It was a while to have the owners and managers feel comfortable with me around. I love Andy's. Where else? Winters I haven't really been to very much. I love shooting at the Fulton Street Gallery, Fulton Street Collective, for a bunch of reasons. One of which is in bad traffic, it's 5 minutes away from where I live.
Hmm.
But aside from that, it's being surrounded by art and artists who are all working. There's always someone who is responding to the music every time there's music. A different person is there. I'll show you a couple of scenes from that kind of stuff. It's like here's this Sonny Sharrock performance a couple of nights ago. Here's Paul Abella, and here's Louis Achenbach drawing the group.
Hmm.
So there's that kind of stuff. But the reason I brought all this stuff up is that I decide what's in the frame. I want to decide what's in the frame. If something's in the frame that I don't like, I either move my camera so that it's not in the frame, or I'll retouch it out. Like I took that microphone out of the Logan Cafe, Cafe Logan.
Yeah.
It was in my way. You know, these kinds of things are really a nuisance to me. It's like it is what it is. And then I want animation in all these. So here's this. Here's two people playing, and here's an artist responding to that. Whatever she does is fine, and it's stimulating to me, and I play off of how they think, what the sound is, what's there. In this case, I could have gotten much tighter, but no, I wanted all this stuff around because to me, that was a good picture. Here's a band playing. I think it was like an 18-piece band, and here's an artist, Jan Regan.
Oh, that's really cool.
It's really, really good. They're doing this, and this is her.
Do they do this frequently?
I do it as much as I can, and there's music.
No, not. I'm sorry. The artists who are drawing and painting, is it a routine of this place, the Fulton?
Yes, it's a collective of artists. I'm a member.
I see.
I'm a member of that. It's a growing group, and I want to say that there might be 60 or 70 people who are
Nice. Okay.
and
Ryder, you should go there. It's
I
every
should.
week.
Yeah.
It's every week.
It's every week. Okay.
every week, and it's just about one or two performances every week. There was a time when there were 3 and 4 performances every week. There was a time during COVID when everything was closed and everyone was paranoid and masked, but still they could come there and distance themselves and perform together, and no one was performing anywhere else. I don't know if there's a favorite picture I have. I don't know if I can, if it's here, but there's.
Oh yeah, it's not very far from me. I can always go there.
Yeah, I'm surprised you haven't been there already, actually.
Yeah.
It's Harvey, do you get out of Chicago?
As far as traveling to photograph other
Hmm.
festivals, the answer is no. I've been pretty much Chicago. It's not against my religion. I just don't do it.
That's Emmanuel Wilkins.
Yeah. Is that a constellation?
Constant. This is Leonard Simpson.
Ah, Leonard Simpson, right.
But
I mean-
he also played at Constellation, right? I think he was one of the first people where they streamed it without any audience.
Guy is super talented,
Yeah.
excellent guy, puts everything into his music. Here's an issue that I have. I love this picture. I don't know if he would like this picture. How sensitive should I be to how the person that I'm photographing feels about what I'm shooting? I don't know.
Why do
take
you
it.
think you would find it unflattering?
Just because of the way he looks. That's all.
But this is how he looks. I mean, right?
How he looks. There's another picture that I used instead. That picture.
Yeah.
So if someone should admit this person.
I did.
So I use that instead of that. These guys. I try to space myself so that whatever's in the frame is there because I put it there. If I didn't want this here, I'd take it out, but that's part of it. And I want to see everybody. That's another thing. I want to see everybody. I want to see whatever it is I'm looking at. I crop almost every picture. Almost every picture I take, I crop. I'll put it in Lightroom. I'll decide that of the 300 images that I captured that evening, that maybe there's 100 worth taking a second look at. And from there, maybe I'll wind up with 30. And then I'll get real close and see, well, maybe I should bring out this detail. And then as I'm done, or as I try to make these strings pop more, as I'm done, I just slowly pull out. Slowly pull out, say, well, maybe is that the image that I want? Is there another angle that I want? I start to discover things anew. But I crop everything. Whatever's in this picture is there because I put it there. I put it there or I left it there.
What's the longest you've worked over a single image?
Oh, I don't know, because these days I often know what I want to do, and it takes me a few minutes. But in the course, let's see if, like, I haven't processed the pictures that I photographed Thursday night of a wonderful, really wonderful singer, Danielle Woods. I have like a couple hundred frames that I want to go through. And let's say that I wind up with 20. That'll probably take me an hour and a half or two to get through them, because I make a general adjustment, and then I go in and say, oh, I'm going to bring out this. I'm going to make these pop more. I love this color. And how am I going to crop it? So I couldn't get rid of all this stuff. So how can I graphically leave it in so that it's okay? I mean, I couldn't get her because of all this. So I framed her this way. There's a guy, solo piano. That's what he was, part of his solo. I'll bring out this. I like bringing out this kind of texture, this kind of feeling. I'll lighten these guys up a little bit so you know that what's going on. This is usually darker, so I'll lighten that up. I touch it all. I touch it all.
When you were doing commercial work, would they do art direction around your image?
No.
So that if you had like a extreme horizontal image, they would design the page to accommodate that or something?
No, I'll interpret it as being very, very fortunate. I've known so many photographers who are just, pulling their hair out because they're so directed about exactly what has to be done, how they want it, what has to be turned in, etc. With me, it's never been that way. It's within the framework of this is what we want. You're the artist, do whatever you want. I was being called the artist long before I thought of myself as an artist. So I do whatever looks good to me. Now, in the process of that, I've discovered some things. When I photographed, there was a period when I did a lot of political fundraisers, people paying a lot of money to be with a political person at a fundraiser. And I'd see these couples, for example, over and over and over again at different functions. And, they're nice people. They don't know me. I don't know them. But I'd start to notice that, you could fix their hair a little bit. You could fix some guy's tie a little bit. And especially, you could minimize this. You could minimize this kind of stuff a little bit. And so I started doing that. And all of a sudden, it occurred to me that these people were realizing that they looked better in the pictures that were being taken of them. And my one of my fond memories is at a fundraiser with President Obama. A couple came in and they're waiting in line to pose with him.
Mm-hmm.
And they see me. Now, they don't know me, but they know me. They're like, hey, that's the guy that makes us look good. Hi, how are you? It's so nice to see you. We started a conversation. Obama's back there like this thing. Hey, whenever you're ready, I'm ready. That kind of stuff. So I learned all kinds of techniques. That's a Photoshop technique. I would take online courses about how to do retouching, face retouching, landscape retouching. I learned all my software pretty much right from the very beginning. Not from going to classes. I went to a couple of classes in the 60s, but that didn't take me anywhere. I learned online. There was something, Mac Academy, way back in the day, where you'd have to buy a disc that would teach you Word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember those.
Whatever. So that was then. And then when classes came online, I discovered lynda.com, lynda.com. She finally sold her thing to LinkedIn. And I learned online from taking a course. I feel comfortable that way. I don't have to go to a class. I'd rather do this. Each chapter is divided into segments. And if I miss what was said, I don't understand what was said, I just rewind the video and play it again. Here's what you do. You click here and then it does this. So I stop the video. I click here. Doesn't do what it's supposed to do. So I rewind the video, and after the third or fourth or fifth time, I learn it. I learned all that stuff. I learned all this either from online courses or from my own experience. And Lightroom, which I've been, tap dancing through all over the place. I got all kinds of stuff here that I can look at and process, whatnot. Is I learned it because out of self-defense. COVID came along and suddenly I don't have to go anywhere. I was fighting learning Lightroom because I was mad at Lightroom. It's like, what's the difference between Lightroom and Camera Raw? And I have my own way of filing my pictures. And I don't want to learn it because all the keystrokes are different in Lightroom than they are from Camera Raw. And screw them, I don't want to learn it. But I suddenly had time to learn it. So I got online and The first guy I came across was Scott Kelby, really well known, excellent teacher, promoter. And he talked about the Lightroom catalog, whatever that is. Okay, I guess I got to learn it. Well, he explained the catalog, explained problems with the catalog. I set up my catalog according to what he said. And that was what, 3-4 years ago? Not a glitch. Nothing's wrong. Then, how do I learn all the basics of Lightroom? Went back to lynda.com, one of my favorite teachers. They had dozens of teachers based on, well, each piece of software, you'd have a variety of teachers that you could pick. And you can pick one because you thought they knew more or because you just liked their personality. There is a guy named Chris Orwig. I remember him. He was teaching, he taught me Photoshop online, and he taught me Lightroom. He used to use the girlfriend that he had as a model when he started teaching me, and now he's married to her with 3 kids. So I'm tracking him. He doesn't know me. I don't know him. But I love the way he teaches. I love his style. I like his personality. I like his enthusiasm. So again, I made a short story long. I learned how to use all these programs, either online by being taught.
What's this photo?
What's that?
What's this photo?
Oh, this is just a grab photo. I'm sorry.
I see. Okay.
Someone was standing there. It's like there's no light, and I like the picture. So what do I do? So I take the picture and then I figure it out. That's all. That's what it is. I'll show you another one. This is one of my favorites. It's with you, Howard. Where is it? Oh, it's this guy. It's this one. This was at the last jazz festival. And, it's like, what was it, 3 days, 4 days walking around. And suddenly I find myself with these guys. Here's Neil and Howard and Jim DeJong. So I was like, oh, there's a picture here. I mean, it's a hot day. I'm tired. And it's suddenly like, hey, jerk, there's a picture right here. I knew that I had to take this picture. I knew that it wasn't going to be any length of time that I had to take it. I pretty much assumed that no one would want that picture taken. And I knew the lighting was wrong, but I don't care. So I took the picture. And then I depended on all the processing knowledge that I had to make it that picture.
Nice.
It's Neil Tesser, Howard Mandel, and Jim DeJong.
Got a handsome guy as Howard.
Yeah, well, you fixed that in Photoshop, I think.
A lot of Photoshop, work on the eyes, work on the contrast, bring out all kinds of details, darken the background instead of having it so light, lighten the foreground instead of having it so dark, that kind of stuff.
You ironed my shirt.
I ironed your shirt as well. Yeah, I can do that too, and have on many occasions. So it's that. This is who you saw last night, Howard.
That's right. Fantastic. Miguel Zanan. Carmen Lundy.
There's Nick Mazzarella, who runs Elastic Arts, really talented guy, Matt Eulery. And so here's Quinn Kirchner. The names escape me. So here's the festival from last year. And one of the problems that we all have when we shoot these things is, are you going to shoot the performers? Are you going to shoot this? This has its own problems. But again, it's like, well, screw it. I'm going to do it anyway, and I'll figure it out. So that's what I chose for that. Who is this? This is
Chris Davis.
Chris Davis, right? And that was her. She never turned around, but she kept on doing this thing here. So okay, I'll try to get this. And I remembered a picture that I think Philip Holzman took years ago for a Life magazine-esque type magazine, where he was supposed to. He was assigned to photograph Churchill, a retired Churchill. And Churchill didn't feel like being photographed, so he put his hat and coat on walked out into his garden, sat down with his back to Philip Hausman. And Hausman saw that even though Churchill is nowhere near looking at him, ain't no doubt about who
That's
this is.
Churchill.
And
Yeah.
he photographed him from the back. And it's a
Mhm.
great picture. So that was the inspiration for saying, hey, maybe I can get away with this.
Yeah.
Eric Hochberg, John Mulder with Steve Rodby and Richie Byrek at the Mill, Bill Ed, Monty Baker Brooks. That's just a still life. Every so often, it's like, I got to do that. So I do that. And I bring it all out. You know, it's all the processing. And it's an interesting thing. I mean, all these clubs are dimly lit, and they all have maybe a color cast, maybe a red color cast to them. And sometimes I want it, lots of times I don't want it. So there's a whole issue of color correction. Let's see what I can do. Yeah, this kind of thing. This is at the Constellation.
Yeah, the Constellation. She's very photogenic. I have a photo of her too with the base at Constellation, and the base is covering half her face, and you can only see half her face in the.
Yeah, she's just wonderful and super talented.
What's her name?
Emma
Daiha.
But here's the thing about it. The room colors her skin, and I don't want the color of the skin. So I got to figure out a way to keep the background the way I want it to be, and have her look more natural as far as I'm concerned. So my approach is to find something that's white, what I defined as white, which in my case is, you know, sometimes you can't find anything that's white, but if you look at a guitar right here, where the strings finally come to the top of the neck, there's a little bar on a guitar, and usually that's white, and sometimes that's the only thing that I can use to set the color, to change the color. And then I'll go back and maybe re-intensify this, because yeah, that's blue, I like that blue. So I'll make this much more saturated, but she's the way I want. And I'll lighten this up, and I'll make these strings red, because that's what I want. And here's just shoot it a dozen times or more, just to find the right exposure where you can see everybody, and you have a good graphic image. I like that.
So Danica wrote a message saying, thank you for the thorough insight. I am impressed with the framing and the moments chosen, which in my opinion makes your photograph very powerful and iconic for your specific, like it gives you your specific character. You have answered all of these topics about the selection of the images I wanted to ask.
Well, thanks. I'm glad that he got something out of it. He's my new best friend.
So, what's your next project?
The next thing that comes along, which let's see, I know I've got, I'll be back at the Fulton Street Collective to photograph Tuesday. As I said, there's two bands there this coming Tuesday.
Yeah, the bass duo. And
I think so.
yeah.
And so that's fine. I'll go there. I'll get there early. I like to be obvious. I don't want to sneak out. I try to be respectful. And often, I mean, these are stills. I mean, this is not a still. You're not looking at still, but when I go and I photograph people who are rehearsing, you don't know as the viewer.
Yeah.
You don't know what it is. I just want something that's graphically interesting, that may be colorful, that says something to me, that gives you the impression that the music is being made.
Yes.
There's talent there, that there's an interest there. And if there's no audience yet, well, couldn't care less.
Well, thank you for spending this hour with us. It was very stimulating and pleasant and educational at the same time. I've put a link to the Etchers website that you mentioned in the group chat, and the invite has a link to your own website.
Oh, great, thank you.
And we'll see you folks in May.